I'm up here on the high desert of Wyoming, and this behind me is the Transcontinental Railroad grade from 1869. It was in use from 1869 until 1902 when they completed the Alpine Tunnel, but there's parts of the town that still remain, and they're really cool, and I want to show them. Let's check them out. So Piedmont was founded in 1869 by Moses Byrne. He was an immigrant from England who had a stage stop in the area. I think it was called the Muddy Creek Station. And when he found out that the Transcontinental Railroad was going to be coming through here, he decided he would establish a town. I think this was already a kind of a camp for the construction of the railroad, but he was going to make it more. And he was going to provide the railroad with the necessary wood ties and then later charcoal. So as you can see, there really isn't a lot of wooded area through here, but to the south is the Uinta Mountains where there are tons of trees. So he would bring in the trees to supply the railroad, and there's some kilns back behind me that were used to create charcoal to fuel the engines, and then were also shipped down into the Salt Lake area. Now this is the best part of what remains of Piedmont here. This house really has stood the test of time. I mean, it's probably going on 150 years old now. But if you can see, I don't know if you call it like a canyon there in where the roof corners, they put metal there to stop water from leaking in, and you know, that just is a testament to the craftsmanship and care that went into this house. Now, I first visited here back in 2008, and I believe there was an actual name on the plaque here, but it's long since been destroyed. Let's have a peek inside here. What's now essentially a cow shed. Just glad there's no dead cows in here at the moment. Smells like cow turds. But the lath and plaster, oh, that's kind of not stepping over there. We'll just show it over here. The plaster and the lath. It's not very good insulation. The house would have been pretty stinking cold and drafty in the winter. But you can see up there is where they had the stovepipe or the chimney going out. So it makes me think that well, either the stove was against the wall somewhere or it was here in the middle of the room. But very, very well built home. And even check this out here. Crown molding. Nice antique style cracked paint. Looks like it was blue and green. Don't really know when this house was abandoned. But all over the ground are just bits and pieces of cups, plates, other things. You know, in these houses, you typically have a kitchen, a lean-to kitchen out the back. That might have been over here, but it's not quite easy to tell because you do have, maybe this might have just been a porch going through here. And maybe that was a kitchen. Could have been a barn or a shed, but I'm pretty sure this building, it's not a house. Pretty sure it's not a house anyway. Belonged, I think, to this house. And then this house here might have had something back there, or the barn's over there. But your properties were typically pretty deep. And then up here, there's a little little rise in the landscape there. That's where the school was. What's kind of cool about this house here is it's got some of the siding that remains here on the back, but is missing from the other parts of the house. Roof's collapsed in. You can see some fabric there, and it looks like the fabric was behind some boards that ran across there. I wonder if that was for the chimney or something, some kind of insulation. Well, maybe not. There's some fabric on the other end there, on the other side of that doorway. But I think you've really got to be impressed with how well built these houses are and how small they are. Yet this was home to somebody. You know, we live in such huge houses, even compared to the houses that were built in the mid to the end of the 20th century. Our houses today are massive, yet people lived presumably happy in these tiny homes. Well, tiny today. So on the back side of this house was siding, and on the front side here we have got some concrete or something like that. Yeah, it's like a old form of stucco or something. Oh wow. So look at the roof here. It's just been peeled back. It just went whoop. But at least it gives us a chance to examine the shingles a bit better. Held up for a long time. Now, as the town was just getting going in 1869, a young orphan drifted into town from Fort Bridger. This orphan was unique in the fact that she was a 13-year-old girl, and you would probably best know her as Calamity Jane. But when she came to Piedmont in 1869, she wasn't Calamity Jane yet. She was just Martha Canary, a kind of odd duck, social outcast who took up residence with the Alton family here. Now, the Alton family, they either ran or owned a boarding house here. And the reason we know Calamity Jane was here is she turns up in the 1870 United States Census living with the Alton family. So she lived with them, helped them out. The matriarch of the Alton family, she tried to set Martha straight. She was orphaned, she didn't have anybody else, and so she was going to help her get off on the right foot and make the most of herself. Well, she just disappointed everybody. In later years, after she was known as Calamity Jane, somebody found Mrs. Alton and asked her what she thought of what had become of little Martha Canary, and she denied ever knowing her, which suggests that she was really embarrassed to have associated with her and with the woman she'd become. Now, of course, a lot of those stories were fabricated. This was at a period of history where truth and authenticity weren't as important as entertainment, especially with a lot of these Wild West characters. So Martha Canary, Calamity Jane, lived here for about a year, best we can tell. Interestingly, she also had a babysitting job, and she was fired from that job after she was found carrying on with local soldiers. And then she disappears until she turns up in about 1874, I think, in Deadwood, and became Calamity Jane. She did write a biography. I don't think she wrote it, but she's been known to spin a couple yarns in that biography, so it can't be really relied on. And so I think it's just really cool that the census helps us understand a bit about Calamity Jane before she was Calamity Jane, That's a really neat part of the history of Piedmont here. Here are the foundation remnants of the Piedmont School. You'd see it wasn't very big, just because we've got the outline of the stone foundations. Again, nothing here was big, but it also happily has a plaque. Oh my gosh, so much mud. No tetanus, please. Here we go. Piedmont School, 1870 to 1950, which honestly is much later than I thought. So I understand it, the mercantile closed here in 1940 because there was no business, and so the fact that the school lasted another 10 years is surprising. But that might be because there were ranching families in the area and the school was already here, so you may as well use it. But this gives you a good overview of the town. So the town was split in half. We had these buildings over here. There was a bunch more. And then over here we've got a few remaining buildings on the other side of town. Now where my Jeep is down there, that's the old Transcontinental Railroad grade. And so it came and divided town right down the middle. And then down there in the distance you can see are these beehive kilns. And they were one of the economic drivers of Piedmont, where they would bring wood from the Uinta forests to the south of here, stack them in those kilns, and create charcoal. And we'll have a look. I wonder if this was a livery stable. And the reason I wonder that, and you'll see in a moment, is we've got some food troughs in there. But another thing that makes me wonder that is it's really quite tall. So you've got the top section that's totally collapsed, but that top section here could have been used for storage, and the bottom section for handling the livestock. Here inside we've got troughs, feeding stalls. Looks like some creature has been built a nest over there of some kind. But then got this log comes up here, serve as a stall, specific stall space. Just do not want to step on a nail here. Oh, there's a ladder to go up the second story, which has totally collapsed in on itself. But you've got these huge beams, which would have been strong enough to support hay and other food for the animals. So I reckon this was a livery stable, but of course I might be wrong. I'm just using the evidence of my eyes here. Oh, okay, even better. Here, stall right there. Just big enough for a smallish horse. It's not very big at all. Now, walking down the road, which was the old railroad grade, and another story that happened here that I think is really cool is on May 8th, 1869, so just a few days before the wedding of the rails occurred out in Promontory, Utah, with the Golden Spike and all that, Thomas Durant, vice president of the Union Pacific Railroad, stopped here and was in a sense arrested. He was arrested by a couple hundred men who had worked for the railroad and had been laid off, and they were owed 3 months back wages. And so they essentially arrested his engine, and when he wanted to make his way down to Promontory, they told him, I'm sorry, haven't you heard the news? You're not going anywhere until we get our money. And so an emergency telegraph was sent back east, promises were made, the money arrived within a couple days, and Durant was able to puff on down the rails to Promontory, where the ceremony was held on May 10th, and he was suffering from a hangover. So we're here at the charcoal kilns. Town's just over that way. We'll go have a look at them. This part belongs to the state of Wyoming. Of course, as your archaeological resources are protected by law and information board. Oh, cool. There is a picture here. Union Pacific train at Piedmont. So you can see, I wonder which house that is. Then we also see that there's houses out behind there. Then we've got another railroad. This is probably the siding right here. So I really would be interested in seeing exactly from which point this photo was taken. I love doing that kind of thing. But this board says that the charcoal made in these kilns was shipped on the railroad down to the Salt Lake Valley to be used in the smelting process down there, though I really thought it would be used for the trains as well. I mean, trains ran on coal or they ran on wood. Now, obviously the difference between wood and coal is significant. Coal burns a lot harder than wood, hotter than wood. But when the Transcontinental Railroad was being built in 1869, the Union Pacific could afford to bring coal, ship it from the east to the west, so their engines were fired by coal. But the engines that were on the Central Pacific Railroad working from Sacramento to Utah, they were fired by wood. And that difference isn't really thought about until you visit the Golden Spike National Historic Park, which has full replicas of the Jupiter and the 119 out there. And they bring them out in the summer, and you can see them, stand next to them. They're really cool. But when I was there for the anniversary on May 10th a couple years ago, you really got a sense of how different those fuels were. And that was cool to me because I would have never thought about that. That's a part of history that's really lost, and I would have never really thought about if not for having gone and been around those same kind of engines that were there in 1869. So, history has smells, and for better or for worse, smells have been forgotten. This is the first beehive kiln. It gets its name because it looks like a beehive. Not too difficult. But what they do is they'd load logs into the kiln, and then they'd stack logs end up or on end all throughout here. And then they would use that sort of service window up there to continue to fill up the entire kiln here with logs. And then they'd light a fire in here and let it burn for a little bit, and then they would block up these little air vents that you see here at the bottom of the kiln. And that would cause the fire to smolder, and these fires would smolder over days, and eventually it would turn the wood into charcoal, and charcoal acts a lot like coal when you burn it. And so they brought wood from the Uinta forest, because again, there's just not a lot of wood here. There's a couple cedar trees, but you'd go through that pretty quick. These kinds of kilns were common here across the Intermountain West, especially in mining towns, because they needed them for ore smelting. And in some of them, looks like little creatures live in here. There's these nests. over there. Anyway, some of them, like this one, smells just a bit smoky. There are beehive kilns down near Cedar City, Utah, from the now ghost town of Irontown that we built in the 1850s, and they still have a very strong smoky smell to them. But what's cool about this one over here is you get a real good look at all the carbonized wood bits. I'm not even sure what that is exactly, but just how black that is and how thick it is. It's pretty much holding up that whole side of the wall while the rest of this is collapsed. Now, looking back over here, I don't know if you can see it too well on the camera, but there's a little fenced area, and that's one of the cemeteries here. It's mainly for the Byrne family, and to get there, you've got to take a road that goes up here, and then the little road that jots down, and it's not kept up, it's rutted, and it is super muddy right now. The only other option would be to scoot around the fence, jump the creek, and then slog through this flooded field here, which, as much as I love history and especially cemeteries, I'm afraid I'm not willing to do right now. So I guess I'm just gonna have to come back and make another video and include the cemetery over there. Moses Byrne, who started the cemeteries over here, buried there with his wife Catherine, who of course grew up in Piedmont and is why this place is called Piedmont. So that's cool. Well, that takes care of it for our little adventure to the ghost town of Piedmont, Wyoming. I'd like to thank you for watching these videos. If you like this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. If you don't like this video, please forget I said anything. We'll catch you in the next one.